For a century and a half, the ruling order has not only governed us, not only exploited us, but reshaped us at the level of our very being. When we speak of neurotypicality today, we are not describing a neutral baseline of human experience. We are describing the outcome of a breeding program, a long and deliberate pruning of the human mind to produce a population that will obey without recognizing its obedience, that will abandon freedom and dignity while believing itself rational. Industrial capitalism faced the problem at its birth. Human beings are not naturally suited to standing in place for 12 hours, pulling levers, stamping metal, repeating the same task 1,000 times. The mind rebels, the body aches, the imagination wanders. The Enlightenment had filled people's heads with dangerous notions: liberty, autonomy, the belief that life was more than servitude. And yet the factories demanded uniformity, punctuality, suppression of impulse. The system required workers who would not just comply under duress, but internalize their compliance as their very nature. So institutions were designed to make that transformation. The modern school system was not built primarily to expand knowledge. It was built to discipline. The bell schedule mirrored the factory whistle. Children were drilled in punctuality, obedience, silence, the capacity to endure boredom without complaint. The asylum and the prison dealt with those who resisted, those whose behavior or temperament disrupted the smooth function of order. Medicine pathologized difference, defining restlessness as disorder, sensitivity as weakness, defiance as illness. The family was reshaped into an instrument of conformity, pressuring parents to raise well-adjusted children who would not stand out, who would not question authority. This was not simply cultural. It became biological. Those who conformed, those who were docile, compliant, eager to please, were rewarded with jobs, wages, stability, the respectability that allowed them to marry, reproduce, and pass on both their genes and their culture. Those who resisted, the eccentrics, the fiercely independent, the non-compliant, were punished with poverty, stigma, institutionalization, or sterilization. In some countries, it was explicit eugenics. In others, it was more subtle but no less effective. Over generations, docility was selected for, divergence selected against. The result is what we now call normal. But normal is not natural. Normal is what survived the sieve of industrial discipline. Neurotypicality itself, as we experience it today, is a product of selective pressure. Human beings were domesticated like livestock or working animals, bred to be predictable, to suppress their instincts, to accept hierarchy as common sense. A century and a half of this has produced populations where obedience feels like sanity, where questioning authority feels like madness, where people cling to conformity as if it were identity itself. This is one of the great betrayals of the Enlightenment. The promise was that reason and liberty would liberate the full range of human possibility, that diversity of mind and imagination would be humanity's strength. The Endarkenment inverted that promise. It used reason not to expand human flourishing, but to rationalize the narrowing of it. It treated difference not as richness, but as pathology. It sought to eliminate the very temperaments most likely to resist exploitation: the sensitive, the restless, the defiant, because those temperaments threaten the smooth functioning of industry. And so we arrive at a world where most people confuse obedience with health. They believe they are normal because they resemble the mold, never realizing that the mold was designed by industry to fit its needs, not theirs. People believe they freely choose a life of labor and submission, when in reality, they were shaped for it from birth. Their parents shaped before them, their grandparents before that. Normality itself is an artifact of domination. To say this is not to condemn neurotypicals as individuals. It is to unmask the system that engineered their traits, to reveal that what feels self-evident was carefully cultivated. Humanity was not always like this. Our species was once wildly varied in temperament, in perception, in ways of living and seeing. That diversity is not gone, but it has been suppressed, stigmatized, and driven to the margins. The fight against exploitation cannot be won without recovering the full spectrum of human minds, because a domesticated people will adapt to anything. They will rationalize their chains. They will call submission maturity, conformity sanity, docility virtue. Only when we reclaim the dignity of divergence, when we recognize that the unmanageable, the difficult, the different are not pathologies but necessary guardians of freedom, can we begin to undo the domestication of humanity. The Endarkenment has trained populations to forget what liberty even feels like. To them, freedom is terrifying because freedom requires responsibility, unpredictability, refusal. But it is precisely that refusal, that unwillingness to be harnessed, that makes us human. A society of the docile is not fully alive. It is a herd awaiting slaughter. To break the physiology of exploitation, we must break the lie of normality. We must recover what was bred out of us, the stubbornness, the eccentricity, the refusal to comply. For only in that refusal does liberty live.